Here's a headline out of Reuters. You have no idea if this is even true. Afghan attacks kills 7 CIA employees, 5 Canadians. And the CIA, Panetta, says that there are plenty of people here who are capable and willing to make sure these people will be avenged. Like all the weddings you bomb, to kill one person, you'll kill 50, 60, 100 plus innocent people in a country you don't have a declaration of war against with drones. In our own country, they're arresting U.S. citizens and holding them for years without charging them because they might have known Al-Qaeda. We talked about this yesterday with Dr. Paul Craig Roberts. I mean, we've got about as many rights in this country as somebody did under Stalin. They're just not out arresting the general public in mass without due process yet. But we're moving towards that. And again, Webster, what is the real war about in Afghanistan? Who are the real players? We know opium production went from all-time lows to now upwards of 90% of opium production, a 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 time, depending on the number, increase. The world's flooded with opium. I mean, is this just a war against any little tribal holdouts that try to sell their own smack, thus cutting into the banks laundering largesse?
No, it's a war against Pakistan, above all. Pakistan, 160 million people, nuclear weapons, strong ally of China, economic partner of China, has to be destroyed. The importance of Pakistan
is... But why did the West help give them the nukes, then, through A.Q. Khan?
It's all, these imperialists weave a complicated web once they get started. But here's the idea. Think of Pakistan as Pipelinistan. Pipelinistan goes from Iran.
No, I mean, you hold Central Asia, as Brzezinski said, you can project power everywhere. But I'm talking about economically right now. Isn't the $500 billion in smack leveraged to $5 trillion a year quite a juicy plum?
It is, but this is not the main object as far as I can see. The object is to prevent pipelines from being built from the Iranian oil and natural gas fields across Pakistan, over the Himalayas, near K2, up there, and into China. This would then give China a guaranteed overland route for oil, gas, and other things that would go along with it, rail links and other things, tanker port at Gwadar.
Which would then project their power into the region and not
right, and they would begin then to, the magnetism of the Chinese economic dynamism would then begin to really weaken the U.S.-British position in the Middle East, and you'd find people like Saudi Arabia looking to China rather than London and
But
New
again,
York.
when we hear British-American, that doesn't mean the average Brit or American's interest. We pay for the private corporate empire. We get nothing out of this.
Right, it means the City of London banks and the Wall Street banks, the usual suspects. Here's the idea, though, that the two ethnic groups that have to be goaded into rebellion, the Pashtuns are on both sides of this border.
So we're in Afghanistan to make sure there's a bigger rebellion in Pakistan, to spread rebellion then into all the surrounding countries and then overthrow them and spread it into the next endlessly.
Right. So the Pashtuns have got to be occupied and antagonized on the Afghan side. And then if they flee to the Pakistani side there, they've got to be attacked by snipers. Again, the Taliban say Blackwater is there massively. There's really no doubt about it. According to The Nation magazine also, you've got Blackwater with snipers, with various sharpshooters and snatch and grab kidnapping operations. So if you're a Pashtun, you're going to be driven to rebel. You're going to be driven into the arms of the Taliban. And the same story, they've extended that now into Baluchistan. And Baluchistan is the part that goes over into Iran. So the entire goal of this operation is to promote a civil war inside Pakistan so that it's broken up and these pipelines can never be built and China can never get a guaranteed overland means of getting oil. And that was the main message of Obama's West Point speech. Also notice that now with Obama we have the new axis of evil, right? The Bush axis of evil was Iraq, Iran, and North Korea way back when. The new axis of evil is now Afghanistan, Pakistan, understood as one thing, Somalia and Yemen. So we're back to that. New axis of evil, Afpakia, as they call it.
Here's the big question. How is this going to unfold the next year? What is the goal of the Anglo-American global establishment versus what you think they're going to get? And then what is their other goals around the world? How are things going for them? Briefly.
Well, I think the dominant mood in Wall Street and London is desperation. You saw that this large Austrian bank, Hypo Alpe Adria, went bankrupt, 40 billion euros. And now you've got this entire group of countries on the verge of sovereign default. In other words, state bankruptcy. It's the so-called PIGS group. Portugal, Ireland, Italy, Greece, Spain. And Greece seems to be the most immediate of that group. So the idea is that the Greeks would try to auction some of their state bonds, and nobody would come. That could happen to the U.S. Right now, the euro, because of these complications, the euro is collapsing faster than the dollar. So the dollar has had a little bit of a reprieve in terms of the value of the dollar, right? The euro has been going down, and that has kind of masked the weakness of the dollar. But of course, we know over here we've got the commercial real estate crisis. Those, $1 trillion or more or less $1 trillion of commercial real estate leases and other things that come up, and a lot of that will go into default. So that's going to be another burden on the banking system. Maybe people notice General Motors Acceptance Corporation, GMAC, just got another $3 to $4 billion bailout. And, of course, what that involves is DITEC funding. Right? DITEC funding is or was GMAC, and they went way into derivatives, and that's what you've got. So the build-up, we're about, a month since Dubai blew. And in the month since Dubai, you can see that the rhythm of bank bankruptcies, bank failures, and just general financial turbulence across the world, that has all increased. So I think the depression will get worse. The main goal of the U.S. and the British is to block the peaceful economic development of everybody else. Russia says, let's have the Nord Stream pipeline down the Baltic. Doesn't attack anybody. U.S. and the British say no. They say, let's have the South Stream, so you can get natural gas in Southern Europe. The U.S. and the British say no. And in the meantime, look at China, right? They've got this fantastic high-speed rail from Canton, Guangzhou, up to Wuhan. So it's 1,000 kilometers, about, 600 miles.
But we're not allowed to have that here because we have these Malthusian post-industrialists who openly say they want carbon taxes to put us into the Stone Age so they can make us more manageable. They want everyone living in mud huts with loincloths but themselves up in their high-tech palaces. I mean, these are the worst, most greedy control freaks ever known. Right,
and I would suggest... We need a stimulus. I mean, the U.S. economy is going to need massive stimulus, but let's make it a real stimulus. Take that Chinese train, which can go, I think it's about 200 miles an hour, thereabouts. We could do better than that. We could get up to 300, maybe 400 miles an hour.
Not allowed to.
With maglev, but we could build a New York to San Francisco transcontinental maglev that would really compete with
No,
airlines.
instead the globalists want to harass people into not traveling. They don't. That's the problem. They want us living in slums while they live in palaces, literally walking on platinum-paved streets.
Right, and that of course, then poses the question of some kind of independent political organization. If you look at what's happening, the leftists generally were completely duped by Obama in 2007, 2008. And I'm afraid the people going to the Tea Party rallies have now been duped by Dick Armey and the Republicans in Congress, because when these Tea Party people come to Washington, D.C., all they get are corporate, globalist, pro-Federal Reserve Republicans, right? There's no Ron Paul.
That's right. They're told you defeat the New World Order by the banks ruling everything, and we've got to attack some more brown people. That's how you really rebel. And Obama's not attacking enough countries, and we need more body scanners. And just a year ago, it was, yay, anti-New World Order, down with the private Federal Reserve. Now it's, give the bankers more power, body scan me, I'm conservative.
Yes, and you can see, again, if the Tea Party management had been honest, you would have had Puma Democrats. You could have had conservative Democrats who were anti-Obama. You could have had this entire Ron Paul area of opinion, libertarians, people like this. You could have had some anti-war people. Why not? But no, automatically they've got to be warmongers and pro-Federal Reserve, and essentially, follow the Republican congressional leadership. So a lot of the people who go to the Tea Parties tell themselves that this is not controlled by the Republican Party, but in reality, it seems to be pretty much controlled.
Well, Webster, in closing, I want you to have a great 2010. Do you not agree with me, though? I want to see if you do. I have no idea. If the worm is turning, the pendulum is beginning to stop and go back in our direction towards liberty, freedom. It's always darkest before the dawn, but I really do see that there is a mass awakening, and even if they try to hijack the resistance, that works for a shorter and shorter periods now, and that the jig really is up, and that we are on the edge of massive change, and that all of us being involved now can really have a chance in shaping the future destiny of humanity.